do you think about that?
All right, listen, David.
God.
I am going to solicit.
Did we even do mic check? Did we even tap? Did we break protocol? Did you delete the last episode? But before doing so, did you ask me if it was okay and if it had been uploaded? You're breaking ranks, soldier.
Listen, David, I'm watching your levels right now, and you're clipping on mine when you're talking. So
maybe you need to cover yours up.
Tone it down.
Did you bring protection?
A little bit. No.
Bring your K95.
Never bring protection.
Bring your Trojans. Okay.
So I can look like the other beak people or bird people or whatever.
Put them all on. You can't be too safe, David.
Okay. Will you let me talk to the people that actually love and support the show?
Is it going to be positive and make me feel better about myself?
No, it's going to do the opposite, but it's the tough love that you need.
Then I don't want you to.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is between you and me.
Slide up in the dumbs.
I've been working on this for a long time. Whatever I'm doing is clearly not working. So I need you to apply the pressure to make
You're
David,
making this sound really sexual, by the way.
I've been
working on it for a long time, and I need you to apply
all
pressure.
The pressure is supplied in the right spot, and you will hit the
right next to the prostate. Is that the on switch?
I need you to help me convince David to get out of his own way and start branching out onto other creative platforms to not only help himself but help the podcast. Can we get David to do? Maybe contribute some TikToks. Maybe start a Twitch channel and just be the entertaining David we all know and love.
You know how many
Can we
times,
get him to do any of that? I need you to help me put that pressure.
How many times I've almost made a TikTok?
And what happened?
And one thing happened. I was like, see, this is fucking why I don't like it. And I don't like it. And I'm walking away from it.
So you delete it and you start over.
I did. And then I tried to do it again. I was like, this is stupid and it's not going to work. And I'm frustrated, and this is not
low-level production quality as the ones that I put on there are. The ones that are actually on there are like the 100th time that I tried to record that.
Like, I can't get the lighting right.
We don't care about the technical.
And they can hear the screams of the children, like, in the background.
Yeah, okay.
So, like...
But here's the thing.
What's up?
We don't care about any of that. Okay? What we care about...
She's calling out for her mother. I was like, shut up!
What we care about is you getting it done, okay?
It puts the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
You want me to record that?
Impressions, I don't care, anything. And then just happen to drop... We're because clearly the podcast TikTok is still shadow banned. So can you help from another platform to push people over to the shadow ban?
Oh, you want me to platform and push?
Yes,
that seems to be happening a lot nowadays.
Yeah.
All right, you know what? Let's make a deal. Let's put their money where.
Bruh. That was you. You can't be yelling at me now. Mine's on silent.
Oh yes, of course. I've done it once, so I'm just as guilty as the 1,000 times that it's happened to somebody else on this podcast.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll make a deal with you. If we get, what's an acceptable number? If there's an acceptable number of requests for me to do this, it could either be TikTok or I'll set up a Twitch account or whatever.
How about this? Any of our platforms that you know we're on. Some of you have found us on Twitter. Some of you have found us on Instagram. Some of you have found us on TikTok. Some of you have found us on YouTube. Anywhere you have found us, and there is a comment feature on all 4 of those for sure. Drop a comment to say, hey, listen, pursuant to episode 80 of the podcast, I hereby vote for David to get off his metaphorical ass and start putting content out on another platform.
I've got an idea. Instead of saying all that pursuant to bearing forthwith the 3rd line of the 5th paragraph of the aforementioned dossier,
I said
just say in the comment section, David sucks. If David sucks appears more than 100 times, and we'll tell you.
Why 100? That's like our entire listenership across all platforms. No.
I come at a price.
We're going to say 5.
I shouldn't have to fuck for free.
We're going to say 5.
I come for a price.
Okay, well, I'm making a TikTok in
You are at 5? Yeah. That's like our relatives. That's why I want 100. I want it to be above, like, just the 5 people that listen to this podcast.
5 for us would be like 100 for Joe Rogan because the size of
which is nothing to him. 100 people tell him he sucks each and every.
So 5 should be nothing to us. And that's a fair amount.
So it's nothing. It's a fart in the wind.
Considering how it should be your own gumption and drive that gets us to do this and not even comments from strangers on social media.
I hate social media and everything. I just talked to one of my clients or somebody today. It doesn't even matter who. It's quiet. But I was saying, like, now social media has changed things so much that you can't even go out and be. Like, there's a rigmarole. Like, I watched one group of girls meet up with a group of guys that was waiting for them, and they had to do the initial, we got to go to the bathroom, and that's always happened. That was always part of the nomenclature. That was always part of the culture. But then when they came back, they barely even said two things to their guy friends and started snapping off selfies and started to get the bartender to take the right angle and then get the man to take. It was 10 minutes of a photo shoot.
Okay, listen, two things for that.
I just want to live life, Dane.
First of all, how other people use the platforms is irrelevant.
No, it's not.
Because you can use it however you want. And second of all,
and I don't want to be one of those creepy guys.
If one of the primary purposes of this podcast is to do our little part to change hearts and minds to be a marginally more liberty or freedom oriented, there's plenty of people pushing anti-freedom stuff all over social media. So if you don't have a conversation, then you don't even have a seat at the table.
Well, here's the thing. Okay. So you're so smarty, hoity-toity, farty over there with your opinions. I don't know how to get a word in edgewise on the TikTok.
That's your opportunity.
It's 1,000. That's what I'm saying.
Because I'm not
give the
there.
People what they want. If they want, hey, we just want Dane to fill us in on the latest and greatest of this, or how we should feel about this particular subject, cool. If we want David to come in and make a couple fart jokes, awesome. Comment in the section in the comments. Do whatever you got to. David sucks. I'm counting 500. Oh, let's split the difference. You went 5, I went 150. If we get 50 comments to say David sucks, I'll start doing 50 TikToks.
All right, people, you know, of course, you know, he makes this little wager and the time that we're shadow banned. You know, if we had videos getting 200,000 views like we were before the shadow ban, we could easily get 50, but...
There's ninjas after us?
Yes.
Now that's exciting.
Yes.
We're doing something right if ninjas are after.
All right, well, with that being said, should we try to outrun the ninjas and actually get to the...
There's no outrunning the ninjas.
To get to the meat and potatoes of this episode?
It's time to go Super Saiyan.
Okay, well, thanks for not answering my question, but yes.
That was an affirmative.
We're going to get into the
Super
episode.
Saiyan.
Okay, Super Saiyan on the other side. Welcome to Weapons and Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 80, which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/80. You can also find episode 80 on any podcast app, YouTube, Odyssey, and but make sure you go over to Spotify and support them more than the other ones because the other ones are pretty bad.
Now.
Yeah, I know. Whatever.
Oh yeah, poo-poo, you're a co-host. Yeah.
But also link up with us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. And join the email list on the website. That's the one. Because that's the way to always stay in touch with us. Now, David, this week,
just reach out and touch us.
There has been some headlines that have a theme running through them, and this is what we're here to tell you what the theme that we spotted was, because these things seem not to be the same. And what I'm referring to is the Whoopi Goldberg incident and then the mayor of Los Angeles, Mayor Garcetti incident. Now, the Whoopi Goldberg, without getting into too much details, because I'm sure you've been inundated with articles with him, she said something...
Should we call her Whoopsie Goldberg this week?
I like that.
Okay. She had a Whoopsie Goldberg.
I think there's your title right there for the episode.
Well, thank God. It's every Sunday at 10 o'clock at night. What's the title?
So she made what I think can reasonably be called a relatively ignorant statement about the Holocaust. Is that being polite?
She picked a whole bouquet of whoopsie daisies.
I'm
on fire over here. Someone call the fire department.
Let's just say calling it ignorant that's a gracious interpretation and statement on our part towards her. Now, does that mean we support canceling her and all that kind of stuff? Absolutely not, because we're better than the people that would want to cancel us, Joe, et cetera. We're not saying she should be canceled over it, even though she was, at least temporarily. But we are saying that a statement of that level of stunning ignorance from somebody who, at least culturally speaking, is a bit of a leader, right? She has a regular daytime show where she's allowed to tell her, opinion to thousands or millions of people. And you would think somebody trusted with that sort of platform would be at least marginally more informed than her statement suggests that she was. The other thing was the Mayor Garcetti incident at the NFC Championship game. You had basically Mayor Garcetti from LA, you had Gavin Newsom, and then you had some other like local politicians in one of the boxes with Magic Johnson.
Oh, God.
And they all took some pictures and they didn't have their masks on. And just like Gavin, and
they all got AIDS.
Just like the thing we said about Gavin Newsom, a few months ago when he was dining maskless while he had everybody else locked down. Same kind of thing here. And Garcetti, this was no shit. Look it up. We'll have it on the show notes page. His argument was when he took those pictures, he was holding his breath. Just like Bill Clinton, he did not inhale.
Exactly. I smoked some pot, but didn't inhale. Didn't feel right at that juncture.
Now, what do these two things have in common with each other? Whether you want to say ignorance or you want to be a little bit more abrasive and say stupidity, whatever the case may be, whether they are political leaders or just general zeitgeist leaders, people, forming popular opinion in Whoopi Goldberg's case.
Religion doesn't exist.
This sort of unread, ignorant, kind of stupid person being in a leadership position or having a large platform position is a feature of the system that we live under. It's not a bug. It's not a coincidence that people of very either low in intellect or just not tremendously educated, those people getting into positions of power and or opinion forming, that's a feature, not a bug.
Well, you think that that victims always try to identify with other victims, right? They always try to bolster other victims, pick them up, like kind of find semblances within the two plights that they've had, right? So Whoopi Goldberg, what was it, a year or a year and a half since the protests or the
mostly peaceful protests?
Yes, correct. The George Floyd's.
Yeah, I think those were summer of 20.
When we're screaming out saying Black Lives Matter, you think you would think that, she would have some amount of, I don't know, tact within that field as to say that, or as not to poo-poo, maybe even, okay, your views are a certain way, but you don't shit on an entire, identity, whatever it is, whether it's a race or not, whether it's religion or not, anyone else's defining demeanor, to say that it's not a travesty that they were targeted is to be lost within yourself. It's like, I don't know. It's hypocritical is what I'm trying to say.
That wasn't her statement. And to be fair, I understood where she was coming from, where she was trying to say,
right,
don't explicitly take the Holocaust down the racial route, because once you go down that route, you kind of miss kind of the broader picture, and her broader picture was man's inhumanity towards man. And I think that that part is correct. But what I'm talking about, the ignorant part, where she's dismissing the fact that on explicitly racial grounds, many, many times over, Hitler and other party leaders of the regime that perpetrated those inhumane acts, their arguments were based on racial grounds, basically calling Jews subhuman and all of the other kind of things that they try to do. In order to pull off the inhumanity towards man, they used race. And so to say that the Holocaust was not about race is not listening to the perpetrators that committed it. And if you want to understand and prevent things like that happening in the future, you need to understand why it happened in the first place.
Correct. But she couldn't come right out and say basically what we've been talking about on this podcast since it's been in existence, is that they made the Jews, which is, race, religion, whatever the hell you want to call them, they made them the other. So she couldn't come out and say they made them the other, because guess what's happening now? We're making everybody the other. We're making people that are unvaccinated the other. So she couldn't come right out and put it right on the nose and just say, hey, maybe we should just accept people for who they are whatever color, creed, religion, race, whatever it is. Like, the evils of man will always be to separate and destroy that which they don't understand or which they turn you against, which is creating the other.
Well, yes. So even though she didn't come out and use the othering type language that are being used against, vaccine holdouts or skeptics or whatever you want to call them today, kind of implied within what her rationale was is exactly that. Right. Because she was saying it wasn't racial grounds. It was all just man's inhumanity towards man. Oh, you mean inhumanity, like denying somebody an organ transplant, even though they're at the top of the list simply because they're unvaccinated? Or do you mean that one class of citizens gets to go to movie theaters and restaurants because they have a little card from the doctor, but the other group doesn't? Or maybe it's the policy that some have advocated for, and we talked about on the podcast, of literally using the National Guard to forcibly keep the unvaxxed in their house. You mean those instances of man's inhumanity towards man?
Or if you're in Australia, if you're unvaccinated, grounding all the unvaccinated people up and putting them all in one spot.
Literal concentration camps going on in the 21st century, all under the imprimatur of the state saying, well, they're other, they're at least implied, they're dirty, they're unclean, right? Because they're not vaxxed. Those were all the same arguments that they used before they ever rolled out the train cars. The first thing the Jew or the Nazis said about the Jews was, they're kind of subhuman vermin, carriers of disease, unclean.
They made them less than.
Yeah, they first othered them, as David said, and made them second-class citizens, dehumanized them, etc. And that's
indicative of all humanity, which is what Whoopi was trying to say, which is correct.
To her point about man's inhumanity, that is correct. But like you said, she couldn't be on the nose with it, even though anybody reading between the lines could see it. It's like, oh, exactly like the things that you otherwise advocate for within the context of COVID.
Right.
So, and again, her not being able to connect those dots, again, I'm not going to say that it's just blind stupidity so much as it is ignorance of what the Nazis said about why they were doing things. And it's also ignorance of, Jewish culture in terms of them considering themselves, part of a unique group of people. And that ignorance tied with Garcetti trying to make people believe legitimately that he had his mask on 99% of that game and only took it off. And when he took it off, held his breath so that he could smile for a picture. Either he is too stupid to understand how stupid of an excuse that is, or he generally has so much contempt for you, the average citizen that he rules over. He has so much contempt for you that he's willing to insult your intelligence to try to get you to believe something absurd like that.
Imagine that. Imagine. You fuck up so hard at your place of business that your boss calls you into the office and goes, "What happened there?" And you told your boss, "Nah, that wasn't me. We have you on camera." "Nah, I was holding my breath the whole time." You killed 8 people with your indiscretion. You dropped a fucking log on everyone's head. "No, that wasn't me." They shouldn't have been standing there anyway. That's their fault. And you expect your boss to, you'd be out on your ass, and if you actually did kill people like I did in this, you piece of shit, in this example that I made up, where you're a murderer. You're going to jail, Fred. You're going to jail, my friend. So that's what I'm saying, is that it's like they don't care. And imagine, what was the follow-up question when he said that he held his breath? Was there a follow-up question? Or did they just accept it?
I only read an article that was highlighting the statement. I don't know that there was a follow-up, but I mean, I would imagine that for the most part, yes.
Did he walk in a full wetsuit,
hazmat
scuba
suit,
tank, on his back, just breathing his own air the entire time to stay away from that vicious COVID?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So, speaking of COVID, have you been vaccinated yet? It doesn't matter. This fucking guy. Okay, I think we all heard it here first, sports fans. It's time to get Dane onto that concentration camp in Australia. All right.
So anyway, here's the, as we said, the themes running through this is like, how do people get to this level, get these types of platforms, get these seats of power, being dumb, ignorant, whatever you want to use. And in terms of that being a feature, not a bug. Now, we don't have to get into the whole like Illuminati, conspiracy theory, Bilderberg group, whatever, to suggest that there are some power players, both inside the government and outside the government, kind of pulling strings behind the scenes that want society to move in certain directions. We can put it like that. And don't you come at me, lefties, with the whole like, oh my God, conspiracy theorists kind of thing. Because this is exactly what you guys say all the time about big business, being in bed with government and lobbying, all that kind of stuff. And on that point, we agree with you. We think that very small, economically powerful, self-interested groups of people can control the levers of power, which is why we always argue, make the levers as small as possible so that the damage they wreak is minimized.
But you don't want that because you get more financial profit from having the one lever that keeps paying you to loosen its chains.
Yeah. So don't suggest to us that it's not possible and you don't believe, outside of being a dismissible conspiracy theory, that it's possible for some people, shadowy figures that you don't see, to either spend money or flex power in some other way to basically pull the strings behind the scenes. And so when I say it's easier for this group of people to control stupid people like Garcetti, or ignorant people like Whoopi Goldberg, it's much easier to control that person and get them to do and say what you want than it is a critical thinker who bucks the trend. So it's not a coincidence that our leaders are dumb. It's like that Rick Sanchez quote from Rick and Morty, where he's like, yeah, Granddad, you're usually right, but nobody ever wants you to be right because you're just such a dick about it. And he's like, yeah, well, that's exactly why, popular people are so stupid. Because I totally butchered it, but you know what? You talk, and I'm going to find a clip.
No, don't do it.
I'm going to find a clip.
You don't have to. I was going to use this moment for a short ad break. Just wanted to say, weapons of immediate destruction. Brought to you by your loving pals at Pfizer.
I have the video. Do you want it?
Go get your shot. You know what? We're giving away free shots this February. Free shot February. Go out and get your booster. In fact, if you know somebody that hasn't got a booster, boost them to get a booster. Just boost away. Over under, but seriously, serious question though. Over under, fourth shot. What's the chance that
is it gonna happen?
Yeah,
absolutely. It's gonna happen. It's already happening.
Are they
going
to call it a booster? No, but the Israelis came out and said that the fourth didn't really matter against Omicron.
Right. They said, but what I'm saying is Israel's about 4 to 5 months.
Are they going to? I'm taking all this in the I wasn't breathing in bullshit. These people that aren't getting vaccinated are going to die. All that stuff. We've already had the test subject of Israel run that test, and they said it didn't work against the spread. So are they going to follow that science, or you think they're going to double down and say that?
No, they're just going to give them an excuse to make a different strand of the shot, make a different version.
Okay.
Like I just saw an article, and I don't know how we got off on this detour, but I just saw an article the other day that said that Pfizer was working on a, quote, pan-coronavirus vaccine, which doesn't just work against COVID, it works against all of the family of coronaviruses. And again, they're just going to keep going. They're saying, oh, well, this one will fix just specifically this variation. And that one, oh, now we have one that fixes them all.
No, I just wanted to bring that up, to bring up the fact that, there's that montage video of how it's, all over the... Do you want to put your Rick and Morty on just for you?
No, the people want to hear it since I butchered it so well.
No, I don't know if that's okay.
Or it's so terribly. But anyway, this is Rick explaining why, I don't know, popular people are stupid or whatever.
I know. Everyone wants people they like to be right. That's why popular people are fucking dumb.
Everybody wants people they like to be right. Mm-hmm. That's why popular people are so fucking dumb.
Which brings us to the point that I was making, is that all the popular people that you pay attention to on CNN, MSNBC, blah, 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 that are all brought to you by Pfizer, haven't made mention of the... Are we bringing up the truckers in this instance? I would like to bring up what was the website? The GoFundMe?
The GoFundMe, yeah.
And how much did it raise?
Something like $10 million.
For that small contingent of truckers.
Yeah, that small fringe minority of people that have unacceptable views, according to the Canadian Castro.
Okay, so regular citizens got together, raised $10 million to help fund that protest.
Because they believed in the movement or what it stood for.
And what happened?
And GoFundMe pulled it, citing violating their terms of service for like violent and extremist organizations. And I'll tell you exactly where this came from.
I'm building a spiderweb thing right now.
Okay.
And just this week, what have we heard for the last 3 weeks? about Joe Rogan, Spotify. We need to pull it because it's misinformation.
Right.
All these people, just this week, the
Obamas
left Spotify. Which
well, I don't know
if
I don't know if they left it or if they're talking about leaving it in the same like Neil Young vein kind of thing.
Again, so a guy voicing his personal opinion, having people on his show of his own volition, and having 3-hour-long conversations, so that it's a very in-depth and analyzed conversation. Can't put that out, but the Obamas can leave. So what I'm saying is, like, the people that have actually been linked to deaths are more revered than the person that's just putting out his opinion. The population trying to support other individuals that are standing up for what they believe in can't be done, can't go through because the powers that be won't let it. So what are we really approaching here right now? Like, this is a scary time. I mean, I told you before the podcast, I was kind of down in the dumps because this is a very, I mean, I don't know. Is this the fulcrum? Is this like the pivotal? Is this the like hinge?
Well, and this is to lead back to the pre-roll of me riding your ass about getting your voice out there.
I didn't care. No, that's
in any capacity possible is when you say, is this the fulcrum, whatever, I do think we're at a tipping point. The only way out of this tipping point is for our side of the ledger, and I'm using it in a very big tent way, our side in terms of the marginally pro-freedom, like leave me alone, I leave you alone, that kind of personality. They can identify as Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, and anything in between, but if they have that general outlook, live and let live, leave me alone, I leave you alone kind of mentality, we have to win enough hearts and minds to that side to shift the culture in a way. Because as we always say, we didn't come up with this, but politics is downstream of culture. If you want better political outcomes, the society first has to accept whatever it is you're advocating for. And if we're advocating let people speak freely and don't forcibly inject people with things they don't want to be injected with, if that's generally what we're advocating for, we have to win the hearts and minds first. We are on that fulcrum. The more voices we have out there doing that, David, on Twitch, the better off we as a people will be.
As we all know, Twitch, the forefront of the political savvy is Twitch, where little 5-year-olds are telling you they're going to fuck your mom.
Jesus Christ.
I'm gonna mess you up if I don't come to Cincinnati.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
David,
fuck you up, boy.
And there's that toxicity on Twitter and Instagram and everywhere else.
But it's just I don't know. It's
water
disgusting.
The flowers, ignore the weeds.
There's a whole lot of weeds out there. But what I'm saying is, it's depressing. And we've been shouting Spotify out for the past couple of weeks, and I want to give another shout out just to hold firm. You know, don't give up, because it looked like they just removed what was the last count? 71?
As of a writing of an article like late yesterday evening, there was 113 in Joe's backlog pulled. Now,
so now they can't get them on the misinformation.
They're not all COVID related. There's other things going on with that.
This is a racial kind of thing,
which Joe has already addressed. We're not going to just go find his statement on it and make up your own mind.
But trust and believe, they're going to be looking in the crannies. If you know, they don't have. He didn't go to Epstein Island. Put it that way. He didn't go to Fuck Island on Epstein's jet, so they're going to have to dig a little bit. But they're going to.
He said some.
If they're going to find anything, they're going to find, or if they want to, if there's anything to find, they'll find it. That's what I'm saying, is like that. But I guess my whole message on this rant is just to stay focused. What is it? Ignore the minutiae, focus on the task kind of thing. Just.
Yeah. You know, there's, it's a lot of people use this as conventional wisdom. David showed me a video, Russell Brand recently said the same sort of thing. It is, anytime there is a big kerfuffle around a smoke and mirrors kind of issue. And I'm not to poo-poo the whole Rogan thing, because that censorship, and now that it's being called for by the White House for Spotify to do more, like, that's not just a private company's individual action. When you have that type of pressure from the highest powers of government, that's not a free business can do what it wants, bro, kind of thing. So I'm not poo-pooing that issue. But to Russell Brand's point is, while they're all saying Joe, meanwhile, the Washington, D.C. foreign policy establishment is literally trying to argue for World War III in Ukraine with Russia.
Yep.
that's a pretty big issue that when you start seeing an issue like, why are they making such a big deal out of Joe? Look around at other things going on in the world because they're trying to distract you from something, in most cases, much, much more pressing, damaging, and destructive.
Yeah. That's the old bait and switch. The old look over here. This is the, we need to focus on getting enough black women on the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
That's what we really need to focus on.
As long as the ones hitting the drone strike button that blows up the wedding of innocent men, women, and children, as long as it's a transgender person,
are they diversified?
Then we're happy. Go America.
Are they diversified? Do they identify with my social norms? Oh, good. Kill those other people that aren't colored the same way as me. Like, the irony is, I'm choking on irony.
I know.
Like, I want my political rulers to be as diversified as possible so that when we bomb all those
committing atrocities.
While we're bombing all those other ethnicities that are diverse from us, I feel good that they look like them.
Yeah.
So it makes me feel less guilty as a white person.
Yeah. It's disgusting.
It's my privilege.
And so as much as we have gone off the tangent of this episode, I want to get us back on because there was 2 points about the people leading us and forming the popular opinion being dumb or ignorant or whatever. First one, easier to control by the ones really pulling the levers behind the scenes. And second thing, and perhaps more importantly, is democracy inherently is this kind of lowest common denominator picks the rules of the game situation, right? And the poll that I always use is during the 2016 election, they did an analysis and found that Hillary Clinton in her speeches and stuff like that mainly talked to her audience on something like an 8th grade reading level, and Trump was on like a 4th or 5th grade. Yeah. And the analysis was talking to the lowest common denominator. If somebody at that low of a reading level can comprehend you, obviously everybody above them can as well, but you're going to speak to a broader group of the people.
Maybe you should apply that to some of your language, huh?
And
Mr. Kerfuffle.
Yeah. Now, if that's true, and I have no reason to doubt at least that it played some sort of impact, right? Because all of the official opinion molders and establishment were saying Trump didn't have a chance. So how did he win? This could be one factor that played into it. But even if that's true, think about what the flip side of that means. It means that you are talking to the least informed on very big policies like what should we set the federal funds rate at, or should we engage in more regime change despite the last 15 failures in the Middle East. Big policy questions like that. Democracy inherently incentivizes the lowest common denominator to pick who leads them.
Hey, what's the definition of insanity again?
And just like Rick Sanchez's quote, is that lowest common denominator at the end of the day is going to vote for somebody they like, because politics is just an elaborate popularity contest.
Which is why libertarians are so crazy, they're fucking not. Because when I just get so infuriated when I hear people say like, oh, well, that's a third party is a pipe dream. You're throwing your vote away. It's like, well, again, we've said it before, we'll say it again. Like, we're the only ones making, like, central ideology is the only thing making sense nowadays. Bill Maher is starting to lean further to the right each and every week. They're literally pushing one of the biggest mouthpieces that they have.
For the left, yeah.
For the left over to the other side. And they don't see themselves doing it because they're caught in their own echo chambers of saying how right they are and just filleting themselves with their own, oh, I found a new thing to be enraged about this week. Starbucks's woman isn't like diverse enough. So now we need to look into like regentrifying and rediversifying the Starbucks logo, because I look at it every day and it affects my life. And I was microaggressed and I had to take a day off work because they don't have a safe space at work. So I had to take a day off for mental health reasons. Like we used to build things in this country. We used to like get out there and work at coal mines, factories. When you had a hard day, no one gave a shit. You just went home, you ate your steak, potatoes, went back to bed. Didn't complain.
Got up and did it again.
Got up, did it again the next day. Now, we can't even be bothered. Oh, by the way, they had to walk to school 20 miles.
Yeah.
In the snow. Uphill, both ways.
Yeah.
No one rubbed their little tuss when they got home.
So if there's anything you can take away from the Whoopi / Mayor Garcetti, and there's tons, there's a litany.
What was it again, Dane? What was her name again for this episode?
Oh, Whoopsie Goldberg.
There we go.
and LA Mayor Garcetti. And there's tons of other examples of famous people and leaders and whatever doing and saying very stupid things. And that we want you to take away from this episode that not only is that a feature and not a bug from the system and from the perspective of the shadowy figures actually calling the shots behind the scenes because the dumb are more easily controllable, but the fact that democracy that is so sacred and that we're supposed to protect at all costs is a self-fulfilling prophecy of the lowest common denominator electing the dumbest people to make the most impactful decisions on all of our lives. It's just not a system that makes any sense. And in terms of real-world practical application, let's think of just a couple areas in society where this has severe and drastic consequences. If you have stupid people making massive economic decisions like, should we print 40% of all dollars that have ever existed in 2 years and flood it into the economy? Are we going to have inflation?
But Dane, we needed money.
That would seem like a...
Nobody was working.
That would seem like a room temperature IQ, like maybe we shouldn't do that. It could have inflationary consequences. And yet, what did we get? Or what about foreign policy? We just talked about it. Regime changes have failed for 30, 40, 50 years, and yet here we are still doing them. Or education. The argument for education is always spend more money despite falling educational outcomes. At some point, you got to think maybe the money's not fixing it. Or maybe, then here's the last thing I'll leave it with. The general government idea of we shouldn't have stupid people leading it is government is the only institution in society for which failure is rewarded. And here's what I mean by that. If a government organization says, we take tax dollars to do X, lower poverty, increase healthcare outcomes, yada, yada, yada. We do X. You give us all the money. X actually gets worse. Then we say, it's because we didn't have enough money. So literally the incentive structure of government is to fail, because if it's failing, then that allows you to argue for more money. If you want stupid people running that kind of system where you're incentivized to fail, you're going to have bad outcomes.
Well, it's the only thing that you're never, ever graded on, like, your actual efficacy. Like in kindergarten, you're graded on whether or not you know your ABCs. In high school, you're graded on whether or not you know arithmetic, A, B, C, D, F. Like, you can fail literally at everything. You get fired at a job for not doing what they hired you to do. The government is literally the only job that you can keep getting over and over for not doing your goddamn job. And no one ever questions it.
Actually, you get rewarded for not doing your job. You
so
get more funding.
Exactly. You keep getting the same job over and over. Like, I dicked it up. But I just saw another thing of Nancy Pelosi saying that she's running for the election in San Fran again. And sometimes you gotta take a punch and you gotta be able to throw a punch for the children. It's like, that didn't make sense at all. You haven't talked about children once over the last fucking 5 years that you've been ranting and raving about Donald Trump. You've been lining your coffers with insider trading for years. Everyone knows it and turns a blind eye to it. What the hell's going on?
And yet she wins re-election by 80%.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is this whole diatribe, and what I kept getting off track, what it seemed like, what I was trying to do is like bring it back to the broader perspective. It's just, we see it too. And I guess the reason why I was depressed before this episode started is that I was worried that other people aren't seeing it. I feel like we're losing more and more touch with reality as we go along. Because, again, with the Garcetti thing, like, I wasn't breathing in. Like, that literally is like a 5-year-old saying, I didn't eat the cookie. Maybe a monster did, when it's got chocolate all over its face and fingers. Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Like, we're not dumb. Which is why I think more and more people are disengaging, which is why it's getting more and more rampant with the lunacy that they're coming out with. Because I think more and more people are disengaging with, media as it is, as we've known it.
Yeah, well, what I think we're experiencing in terms of like the stuff against Joe and, just the outlandish canceling of anybody with a marginally different opinion on, certain subjects.
Or nuanced.
We are in the we're experiencing the death rattle. You know what the death rattle is? Like right before somebody expires, they let out this like guttural. Yeah. We're in the death rattle of the regime in the sense that they have been very comfortable with complete control of the narrative. Yeah, of the narrative. Not only in terms of the political situation of DC controlling 320 million lives, which was never intended, but also in the sense of like the media lashing out at somebody like Joe because he has audiences 11 times their size. And to Brian Stelter's point, he tried to make up this point that CNN.
When do we lie? When do we misrepresent
it? He recently said just this week on the whole Joe Rogan. He's like, people trust Joe Rogan, and he just wings it on his show. We have entire teams dedicated to the truth, and you don't listen to us.
And you still fuck it up.
Exactly. That's the opposite side of that coin.
Well, I was so much better than that girl that he's dating right now. I don't even get it. I don't get it. Well, maybe it's because you texted him 5 times a day, asking him what he's doing, calling him a liar, and saying that he's cheating on you with other women. Maybe you got a little tired of that. That's not even that big of a deal. It's like, so, and then again, to go back to the stupidity thing, like they're calling him out and saying that he's killing people for misinformation. Number one, let's go over some of their misinformation again, just in case we forgot. They misrepresented ivermectin. They called it a horse dewormer. They said that you were going to get this shot. It's going to be the cure. You're never going to have to worry about corona again. Oh, whoops. They protected a guy and even put it on with his brother. The two lovebirds, the darling brothers of the COVID-19 lockdowns. What was there? The Cuomos. Remember, two paisanos just talking. One had just killed 15,000 people, and then the other put on a nice show of him getting COVID coming out of the basement, even though he'd not been. And then also at the end, when it comes out, they were cool with the 15,000 dying. But once he touched one of the interns' asses, then they really had a problem with it. They had to get rid of him. And then they had their boy that was on their news station commit a felony by using his clout as a journalist to investigate what the cops were looking up on his own brother. So before we lose sight of what we're listening to, Brian Stelter, let's also realize what's going on. Joe's just a podcast. Joe's just saying, and he admits readily that he's an idiot. Says, if you listen to me for medical advice, I'm not a doctor. Seek a doctor's help. You guys claim to be the infallible. And like Dane was just alluding to, you have teams, entire buildings and processes, and you still fuck it up. So who's really the idiot here?
Either you're incompetent or the fuck-ups are intentional.
Right. So either
you're trying to lie to us or you're incompetent.
Or you're inherently evil and must be destroyed. There's no middle ground here. So either way, you shouldn't be listened to. That's the middle ground.
Yeah. And, I think the point has been roundly made. This wasn't even a necessarily censorship Joe Rogan episode. But the reason why it turned into that is because the ones calling for all the censorship, the Whoopi Goldbergs before it got, or the Whoopsie Goldbergs before it happened to her, and the politicians that can't even follow their own rules but call you a grandma killer for not doing it. Those kinds of people, either they're completely lacking in morals and principles, or they're completely spineless and can be convinced to do whatever, or they're ignorant, or they're stupid, or there's some combination of all of that. The fact that a disproportionate number of people that are either leading us or in control of huge platforms that form popular opinion, the disproportionate number of them that comprise this group of stupid, ignorant, whatever people, that's no way to build a society. You are literally, in no uncertain terms, putting the worst of humanity in charge of the other vast majority of humanity. We have somehow stumbled onto a system of setting up society where we incentivize and intentionally target for leadership roles the worst among our species. Now, I don't know what kind of system needs to replace that, but we're definitely trending in the how many times you need to make the mistake without, and not be ruled insane for continuing to go back to that well.
So
that's what I want you to take away from this
order
episode.
To sum this up with Dane, is I'm going to comfort myself publicly with you listening, saying that we see it. And if you see it, please get in the comment sections. Tell us why we're right. Tell us why we're wrong. I mean, tell Brian Stelter to cancel us if you want to. I don't give a shit. You're a free person. But at the end of the day, engage with us. Let us know you see it too. And if you really want to, get a mouthful of, along with an earful of weapons of immune destruction, tell in the comment section David sucks, and maybe I'll start a TikTok.
Not only that, but I am going to, because one of our mentor podcasts I heard on a recent episode of his, that
aside from Joe Rogan,
shamelessly, you just have to ask for it. And, especially within the context of independent media, it is one of those things that if it's not supported, it goes away.
If you want more of us,
we don't have pharmaceutical companies paying us millions of dollars to push a certain narrative one way or another. We have our own dollars floating this thing and the dollars of a few supporting listeners. And if you find value in this podcast, please go over to the website, go to the support our tab, and you can do a one-time donation of however much you think value we provided your life, or you can do a monthly subscription.
Or send us cocaine in the mail. We'll sell that on the streets.
And by the way, the lowest level subscription of $5 a month gets you into our private Facebook group where you can talk directly with us, suggest topic ideas for the show, et cetera, share articles, chop it up with the rest of the people that we call our little sane space over there. So definitely do that. But you can do all of this by going to wmdpodcast.com/80
professional
to see this episode specifically and or support the show and jump on that email list. But you can also get this episode on any podcast app, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Odyssey, and then engage with us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.
Yeah, fuck Twitter.
I think I've done all the shameless self-promotion. I've put out our little hat and said, thank you, sir. May I have another? And
a pittance for the poor.
And with that, I think we'll see everybody next week for episode 81. No?
Yeah, I guess so.
No?
81.
We're going to be back?
The fight in 81st.
All right. See you next week, guys.